Hi, it's Gene, retired in Mexico, and we ask one question on this channel, which is, do they write them and sing them like they used to? A lot of people, young and old, they think the old music is better, but I'm not so sure. And today we're going to count down the rest of my 30 favorite albums from the year 2000. I'm not saying these are the best, I'm saying these are my favorite. And we're going to count down 15 to 1. So if you haven't seen part 1, it's already uploaded. And some of you guys, I'd asked if you were interested in a playlist, and I got a couple, 3 responses saying, yeah, we'd like that. So at the bottom of this video, I'll put a link to the playlist. It's still pretty long. I only took highlights from each of the albums, but it's still well over 10 hours, and you know, can't help it. I just took maybe 4 songs from each disc. If it was a double album, I would take about 8 songs. And so that's it. And let me explain why I'm outdoors. So my webcam crapped out last night, and that's why I did not drop a video this morning. Anyhow, I've done a lot of testing on it. It's dead, and it's only a few months old, but it died. And they're sending me a replacement, but it's coming from the United States. It's going to take me a couple weeks to get a replacement of my webcam. So in the meantime, I've got to do these outdoors, at least until I can borrow a webcam from somebody. So if I can do that, we'll go back indoors. But I need the ambient light out here. My installed webcam on my laptop just doesn't look good indoors. So forgive me for that. I mean, it's not my fault, you know, unless I didn't spill a drink or anything on it. It just seems to have crapped out. And so there you go. So we're going to do this countdown outdoors. I do want to talk about one honorable mention that I missed. I had 3 honorable mentions in part 1, and one of those albums is Sincere by M.J. Cole. This is interesting because on the live stream I did, one of the fellows asked me if I knew anything about pre-dubstep. He was talking about Burial and the albums that influenced dubstep, and I said, I'm not sure. But I did a little research, went into my collection, and I do have music by M.J. Cole and Benga, which were 2 big influencers that kind of bridged the gap between UK garage in the late 90s and then dubstep, which kind of exploded in 2001, 2002. So M.J. Cole's Sincere, this is a pretty good album, pretty good electronic album with some really killer vocals. If you don't know this, it's pretty good. So honorable mention, M.J. Cole. So let's get into it, the top 15. And by the way, I'm wearing my headset because I recorded a video without it, and it just doesn't sound good. So I have a better mic here on my headset. So I don't need the headset. I'm not listening to music, but I'm wearing it because it has a microphone, and it'll make for a better video. So again, thank you guys. When I say guys, I mean men and women and any other identity. I just say guys to encompass everybody. And so coming in at number 15 is an important album from 2000, the White Stripes, De Stigil, which is their debut album. And I like this album quite a bit. It got 4.5 stars on AllMusic. It's their debut, and you know, they introduced drum and guitar without bass. And I just listened to a interview with Jack White on Rick Rubin's Broken Record podcast, and he said something interesting. He said that there were lots of duos around. There had to have been, because this album came out, it blew up, and all of a sudden the record label started signing all these duos. Well, the duos were already in existence, and he even talked about a band in Detroit that he knew that was doing just guitar and drum. And anyway, they did not invent the model, they popularized it. Those are my own words, but that's my summary of what he talked about. And this is great stuff, but it also brought back a lot of retro blues and Americana, and a lot of influences that had gone out of vogue a little bit. So great album, Day Stigial, with songs like Apple Blossom, and is this the one with You're Pretty Good Looking for a Girl? Anyway, I love this album. It's my third favorite White Stripes album, and it's terrific. Coming in at number 14, an anthology, The Flying Burrito Brothers, 1969 to 1972. This is seminal country rock with three members of the Byrds, Graham Parsons, Bernie Leadon's on here, who later would join the Eagles. And this is all the sort of pre-Eagles kind of country rock. And I love this stuff, and it's not really an anthology because it actually, on these two discs, it actually contains all of their material from their first three albums. So to call it an anthology is maybe a misnomer, but I love this seminal country rock kind of that fell between what the Byrds were doing with Sweetheart of the Rodeo and then later what the Eagles would do. This kind of sweet spot right between. Love this material, big Graham Parsons fan. You have Christine's tune, and wow, just, I don't know, if you've not heard the Flying Burrito Brothers and you like country rock, this was one of the most influential, and love it. Hot Burritos. Coming in at number 13, a duo, Richard and Linda Thompson, the best of Richard and Linda Thompson, the Island Records years. Now maybe these guys deserve 2 CDs. There's a lot of stuff missing on here, like you don't have Shoot Out the Lights. But the thing is it's just such a great listen. I mean, all the way through from start to finish, no killer, all killer, no filler, if I can say that. And if you're not familiar with them, they were a sort of English folk duo, but they also incorporated rock and roll. Richard Thompson, one of the best guitarists, one of the 100 best guitarists ever. And I had the great privilege to see him 2 times in concert. Love Richard Thompson, and Linda's vocals are so sweet. So earlier in part 1 we talked about Sandy Denny, and she was in a band called Fairport Convention. Well, Richard Thompson was in that band, and then they both went solo, and then Richard met Linda and they were a married couple, and they ended up making several albums. And you've got I Want to See the Bright Lights Tonight, The Great Valerio, and all these great English folk rock songs, mostly from the 80s. Really great stuff. Check them out if you don't know anything about them. Coming in at number 12, an album actually from the year 2000, The Queens of the Stone Age, Rated R. My second favorite Queens of the Stone Age album after Songs for the Deaf. And Rated R, what can I say? And this is an album I'm still, I probably have only played it no more than 10 times. So I'm still falling in love with this album. I somehow kind of missed it and got into it late. But you probably know a lot about this band. There's probably nothing I can tell you about them. But probably their first great album, that's arguable, but I would say that. And love Queens of the Stone Age. Josh Homme, great songwriter. The band kills it. And Rated R, Queens of the Stone Age. Coming in at number 11, this might surprise some of you guys, but I'm a big Goldfrapp fan, and my favorite album is Felt Mountain from this year. Beautiful melodies mixed with some dark sonic sounds. You've got that ambient electronic female vocal combination. Love Felt Mountain by Goldfrapp. I'm guessing that you guys are familiar with her. Alison Goldfrapp, is that her name? And she's a great singer, and this hits all the right notes for me. It's got that, it just, I don't know, it puts me in a great headspace. It's a good album on headphones. Love it. All right, got another album actually from 2000. We're mixing classic rock albums from before I was born with things that were actually recorded in 99 or 2000, released at that time. So We're in the top 10 now, and starting off the top 10 is Doves, Lost Souls. Love this album. I think they're in kind of the same space as bands like Interpol, but I like Doves, and this is my favorite album by them. And you've got songs like Fire Suite and Cedar Room, and man, love this. Love the pounding rhythms on here and all the electronics. When I talk about the sweet spot, yeah, when I listen to Lost Souls by Doves, it just hits that little space that I want. There's nothing I would change about this album. It just hits all the right notes. Lost Souls by Doves, great album. Coming in number 9, some reggae music. I love reggae. I've seen a bunch of reggae bands in concert. Never saw this one though. The very best of Toots and the Maytals. So I don't know how familiar you are with Toots and the Maytals, but great band, and this has some of my favorite reggae songs on it. So this has 5446 was my number. That's a song about the number that a prisoner was assigned on his uniform. You have Funky Kingstown, Monkey Man, Pressure Drop, an absolute classic. The Clash covered that song. Love Toots and the Maytals. There's many anthologies of their music, but for me, this disc and their live album, Toots and the Maytals Live, if I have those two discs, I'm good. Because I love Toots and the Maytals, but I don't need a double or a triple. So this single CD, which was at the time remastered, it sounds great and it's fun as hell. If you haven't heard it, check it out. Coming in number 8 is music from before I was born. Got to have some Duke Ellington in your collection, and my favorite anthology is from 2000. So let me explain. In 1999 they put out a massive box called the Centennial Edition, and I don't know if it was called the Centennial Edition because we were coming into the new millennium, or if it's because it was his 100th birthday. He might have been born in 1899, I'm not sure. But Duke Ellington, what they did was, after they put the box out in 99, the following year they put out a 3 CD anthology called Highlights from the Duke Ellington Centennial Edition. And I love Duke Ellington, but 3 CDs is just right for me. This has got Satin Lady and Rockin' in Rhythm and what do you call it? I'm spacing out the titles of the song, but you know, Harlem Jungle and Come Sunday, and you have all of Duke Ellington's greatest material crammed into these 3 CDs. You might say, well, that's too much, but he was so prolific, and you might remember back in the old days, people used to put out 2-3 albums a year. So he's probably about as prolific as someone like Frank Zappa. He's probably got 80 or 90 albums. So they distilled this down to 3 CDs. It's all really well mastered, and it's just beautiful stuff. If you don't know the jazz artist Duke Ellington, he was one of the 5 most important figures in jazz, I would say. You had Louis Armstrong, Duke Ellington, Miles Davis, maybe Benny Goodman. You had really these key figures, and he was one of the giants. All right, coming in at number 7 is a really unusual album. I have a hard copy of it. I say unusual because you cannot buy it. I'm a big fan of the band Little Feat. I've seen them in concert. After Lowell George died, though, he was the lead singer-songwriter. They didn't perform for, I don't know, 8-9 years or something. They pretty much broke up, and then they reformed. But these are some of the best players out there. They do tons of session work. I've seen them on concerts too. When I saw Bob Seger, he had a couple members of Little Feat in the band. When I saw Stevie Nicks, she had a couple members from this band. So what happened was they put out this 4 CD set called Cakes and Outtakes. And then this promo came out, and you cannot buy this. You cannot buy this promo. It was just released at no cost to record stores and maybe radio stations, and it's selections from the 4 CD box set. And it's great. I think it's 20 tracks. You got Dixie Chicken, you've got Oh Atlanta, Spanish Moon, Home Ground. You've got all the best of Little Feat on one CD here. And this and their live album Waiting for Columbus, which is a double. If you've got those 3 discs, you've got, and again, sorry about the noise out here. I really have no choice. So anyway, selections from Hot Takes and Outtakes by Little Feat. Absolutely love that band. Kind of roots rock combined with funk. So really, really great band from, they're from California, but kind of like Creedence Clearwater Revival, who is also from California. They don't sound like they're from California. They sound like they're from the South. So those are the 2 bands I think of, CCR and Little Feat, that sound like they're from somewhere else in the United States. Awesome stuff. And this covers the Lowell George period and the Reformed period. All right, coming in at number 6, The Anthology by B.B. King. 2 CDs. Now, maybe he deserves more than this, but as much as I love B.B. King, I'm pretty happy with 2 CDs. And, you know, with anthologies, you get an artist like this that's been anthologized so many times, and sometimes when people continue to put out anthologies, they actually get watered down because they start putting more and more material from their later career. But I think with B.B. King it works because you go all the way back to those old songs like Why I Sing the Blues and Sweet 16, and then it moves forward through his career. The Thrill Is Gone, but then you get things like his collaboration with U2, When Love Comes to Town. So it covers his whole career in 2 CDs. I've seen him a couple times in concert, one time at a festival, one time opening for U2. So that was good because then he came on stage during their set and did if you've ever seen the movie Rattle and Hum, I might be in that movie because they did 2 shows in Tempe, Arizona, and they filmed both of them. I was at one of those shows, so I think I'm in that movie. Did you spot me? Probably not. But so that was great seeing him come out and perform with them. But big B.B. King fan. I mean, what are you going to say? It's like Duke Ellington. B.B. King is one of the 5 to 10 major players in blues. You think of Howlin' Wolf and Muddy Waters, but then in the sort of second phase of the blues, B.B. King was a giant starting in the 50s. And oh my God, if you've never heard 3 O'Clock Blues, oh, devastating song. All right, coming in at number 5 is a album actually from 2000, and this would be my second favorite album of new artists, or artists actually recording at that time period, and you might be surprised by this, but it's P.J. Harvey, Stories from the City, Stories from the Sea. Love P.J. Harvey. This is my favorite or second favorite, one of my 2 favorite albums by her, and big fan of P.J. Harvey, and this is better produced. It's not one of those lo-fi albums like in her early period. I think people love or hate P.J. Harvey, but I'm a big fan of her lyrics and her attitude, and like I say, this album is more cleanly produced, not lo-fi. Well, yeah, if I was a pilot, lo-fi, but lo-fi. And absolutely terrific stuff. I don't know, there's just something about her. She always gets my attention. She has good guitar. Some people don't like her guitar tones, but I do. I think she's a terrific guitar player. And so Stories from the City, Stories from the Sea, strong songwriting on here. Coming in at number 4, this is the number 1 album on Rate Your Music for the year 2000, and I agree, it's my favorite album. It's Radiohead, Kid A, and there's probably nothing I can tell you about this album. I'll bet just about every one of you watching this has heard this album. My favorite song, probably the national anthem, but man, those first 4 songs, 1, 2, 3, 4, that's one of the best opening 4 songs of any album I can think of. Just killer stuff. And I don't think there's anything I can tell you about Radiohead, but Kid A, my favorite album by them of the 21st century. And I used to own this album. I don't have a hard copy because I lost it in the divorce, man. My wife took all the Radiohead except the bends. She left me the bends, and that was it. So, and I've never replaced this album. I just stream it now. But Kid A is, what can you say? 5-star album according to AllMusic and just about everybody else. Okay, so we're down to the top 3, and these are all anthologies from older periods of music. Number 3 is Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers Anthology Through the Years. I've never owned this album because I always owned the individual CDs, was a big fan, seen the band a couple times in concert, and like Little Feat, they are just great players that also do a lot of session work. Awesome stuff, and like the B.B. King also, this is a better anthology for covering their entire period. So there was an anthology that was put out, 1 disc, around the time of Wildflowers. That's when they did Mary Jane's Last Dance as a bonus track. But then later they came out with this double CD covering everything from Breakdown and American Girl through Free Fallin' and I think all the way through Echo. And this is an awesome anthology. I think it's all the Tom Petty you need. He's got some good deep tracks, but by and large I think the singles are the best. And I probably don't need to tell you anything about Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, but just a great classic rock band that I love. And this is 2 CDs, and so this is my favorite. I've made many lists throughout the years. Almost every year I've made a list of my 30 favorite albums, and I just got rid of all the other Tom Petty and put this on here. I think it's a perfect anthology and career overview. All right, number 2, what's it going to be? Well, I'm going to show you that what I own. This is not it, but I own a 4 CD box set called Nuggets. Now, what is Nuggets? Lenny Kaye, who is now with the Patti Smith Group, was a rock journalist and critic for Cream magazine, and he put out a CD called Nuggets way back in the day, I think in the 70s. Well, no, it wouldn't have been a CD then. It was a vinyl LP, and it was very popular. And then in 1988 they came out with this box, and around that time there was another actually I think in the early 80s there was a single CD. So they've done many versions, but the reason I'm going with the 2000 CD, which is called Nuggets from Nuggets, Choice Artifacts from the First Psychedelic Era, is you have CDs now holding 80 minutes of music, and that wasn't true before. So like the first Nuggets CD, I think it had like maybe 14 tracks on it. This one has 20. And this is all the great garage rock. It's Wooly Bully and Psychotic Reaction and Pushing Too Hard and Incense and Peppermints and You're Gonna Miss Me by the 13th Floor Elevators. It's 20 tracks of classic 60s garage rock, and it's killer. So I own the box, and I've played the box a couple times, but it's a lot of garage rock. I kind of prefer that 20 track sampler. Nuggets from Nuggets. If you haven't heard this, great stuff. This is where it all started. If you like garage or psychedelic music, this is it. This was the egg. This was the birthplace. All right, so what's number 1 going to be? Oh, by the way, Nuggets from Nuggets on Rate Your Music, 4th highest rated album of 2000. So I'm not alone in that view. All right, number 1, Stax Records, STAX. This is a studio out of Memphis. that kind of ran side by side with Motown out of Detroit. Stax was based in Memphis, and they had a grittier sound. And then you had Muscle Shoals in Alabama. So you had pretty much three hot spots of R&B music in the 60s and 70s. And Stax had put out this huge, massive box of like 13 CDs, and it was just overwhelming. I never bought it because it was too much. And I've also owned a single disc of Stax music, but it wasn't enough. It was just too skimpy. And in 2000, they put out this 4 CD collection, the Stax Story, and it's perfect, perfect. And it's got everybody from Booker T and the MGs and Otis Redding to blues artists like Albert King, and you have the Staple Singers and William Bell and Rufus Thomas, and it's just a who's who of Memphis artists that were so influential. And I absolutely love Stax R&B. I love Motown too, and I love Muscle Shoals, but Stax had a particular sound with the horns and the rhythm section. Booker T and the MGs were the house band, and this is great stuff. It's great stuff. I was talking about Albert King. He's got Born Under a Bad Sign on here, and the Staple Singers, Take You There, and Green Onions, and Walking. Oh, Sam and Dave. You have Soul Man and Thank You, and whew, this is it. This is great stuff. The Stax Story. So that's it. It's a long video. We'll wrap it up. Let me know what you think. And in the future, I don't know what kind of videos I'm going to be doing if I'm stuck outdoors here without a webcam. I will still do some reactions, but I'll be particular about the kind of music I do, because I know the songs are going to be interrupted by traffic noise and barking dogs and crying children and everything else that goes on here in Mexico. So, and as we say here in Mexico, buen dia.